Okay, hello guys. Welcome to Wrestling with Whiteness. This is interview number 17, I want to say. I'm so excited. I have one of my inspirations here. I'm here with Big Swole today. This is a thing that people have been calling for a while now. So I'm ready to give the people what they want. But first of all, I made this goal chart at the beginning of 2022, end of 2021. And right here was to get my Big Swole interview. So now we could take this off the board.
Hey.
I'm very excited. I'm so grateful for you doing this, especially for this project.
Of
Um,
course. Of
your name
course.
has been brought up a couple times when I've had interviews with other people, specifically when I talked to Tasha. We
Mhm.
talked about your sisterhood. So I kind of want to start there. I
Okay.
feel like there's a lot of sisterhood in wrestling right now, even brotherhood as well. There's lots of interminglings and there's lots of amazing interactions that we're seeing online. So I kind of want to get a little bit of your take. Who do you have sisterhoods with in wrestling? What does that mean to you? How does that help you get through the challenging community, to say the least?
Well, I actually have a lot of close friends and close sisters in wrestling, including Kiera Hogan, Diamante, Tasha, and even outside of like wrestlers, like Lovely Blue. Like she's really close to me as well. You know, like Faye
Yeah.
Jackson. She's retired, but you know she's still a worker to me. But it means everything to me to have these type of connections because those are the people that I can count on
Right.
when the going gets tough, and they're just like my ride or dies, and I love them to my core.
Yes. I specifically wrote down Tasha and Diamante because I feel like that three strikes match that you guys had will
Mhm.
forever live on. But I feel like that definitely probably had to bring you guys closer, sharing such like a critical moment and such an amazing match that was like so renowned on the internet. Did that bring you guys closer together at all, or do having like these monumental matches kind of influence your relationships?
Oh yes, honestly, I used to say this thing to her. I was like, well, you know, if there's anybody here that I'm going to bank my career on, it's you. Because this story was my baby. It was my
Yeah.
one chance to show exactly what I'm made of as far as, you know, telling story lines and stuff like that and actually getting it across and, you know, letting the audience feel who exactly I am. And I just needed somebody to bounce off of. And I knew that Diamante was going to be the one. Like we were already close, and just us having that progression throughout our career has been wonderful. Like we've gotten better and better every single time we've touched in the ring, and I just one of those people that I can just trust.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's honestly one of my favorite matches that you guys had. Um, but before that, you had the green hair, and I'm gonna put a picture in editing somewhere.
Yeah.
And I was like, I got to do the green hair now. I loved it. I did it. It was a phase, but more importantly, that kind of showed me how much of a role model you are. Not just for me. Obviously, I wrote the Dear Big Swole letter that made its way to you, but how have you kind of begin to understand? Oh, sorry, I'm getting a bunch of notifications. How have you kind of begin to understand that you are a role model now, and that little girls are looking up to you and seeing you as a role model and seeing you in themselves?
Being a role model honestly started when I was younger. I just knew that I just had those leadership qualities based off who was around me and their reaction to who I am and what I said instead of using my voice. So going into wrestling, it was no different. Of course, at the beginning, just a student role was fine for me. But as time, you know, went on and as the years went on, it just I guess it's like second nature to me to
Yeah.
have that, I guess, that motherly love, that that leadership, you know, experience. And it's it's amazing to be a leader. I feel like it's a lot, one, it's a lot of pressure. And folks don't understand that kind of pressure because you could have somebody on the fence about something and they're looking at you trying to determine whether or not they would go this way or this way, you know,
Right.
and that's very important to have that kind of significance in someone's life. And I don't take that lightly at all because, again, these are people's lives at stake, you know, these are how they feel, how they're going out into the world. And I'm just honored to be a leader in this community.
Yes, that's so amazing. My dad doesn't watch wrestling. He doesn't understand wrestling at all. But he read the article and he was like, "Oh, you're little swole now." I was like, "Dad, I don't think that's how it works." But there's obviously that that trust in parents in you, which I think is so amazing. You're such an amazing representation. Even the character, which I don't believe is a character. I always think that when wrestlers present themselves on TV, it's normally just them turned up a little bit, and that's how they develop their characters.
Completely.
But it's definitely something that I was able to relate with. Like when I saw you had braids, I was like, oh my God, I see me on my screen. That meant so much to me. But I do want to kind of dive into a little bit. When you were kind of coming up with how you wanted to present yourself as Big Swole, were there any things that you took or any experiences that you took from your past that you were like, I need to include this in my character? This is how I want to talk. This is how I want to act. This is how I want to dress. Any of those things?
Everything in my life has shaped me. When I guess I was thinking about composing this Big Swole character, really, it's like you said, it's really just me, turned up a lot, like to 1,000. Like, I took everything from my life, like being in the Air Force, learning that that bearing mentality, and also like being in college, being young, living in Clearwater, like everything that I was around, and of course my mother. My mother is one of my biggest influences ever. Like she's like my hero, and so I take a lot of her mannerisms and I use it in wrestling, which really is just me being Little Mary because that's what they called me. But so really, I'm just like me and my mom cross.
That's really adorable. I honestly, every like mannerism that you present, the way that you speak, I'm so easily able to resonate with it. And I feel like that was one of the crucial things when you were on AEW or when you even were working the Indies, is that you were able to be yourself and be authentic over there. And now you kind of transition back to the Indies. You just worked some dates. You worked with
Tui,
Tuli. Thank you.
Tootie
Thank you,
Lynn.
Tuli. I'm sorry. I'm having a morning. I'm very stressed. I'm very panicking. And Trish as well. So what was it like to be able to go back, work with those girls, one, and two, be able to work on shows that were either all Black shows or majority Black run or Black owned shows?
Being on an all Black show, a majority Black show, really was the kicker for me. When I said I wanted to return, in a sense, back to the Indies, I wanted it to be one on my terms, but also something that I heavily believe in and I heavily support, our culture, our people, and everything. And I just felt like this was the start of something great. This was my chance to test myself and to pretty much show and prove, in a sense. And I wouldn't have faced anybody else. Like Tootie is amazing, and
Yeah.
it just felt so good to be in that position where I'm the one they're calling on in order to get their talent over. They trust me to like handle, this person with care, of course, but also to get the story across in the match. And it's just such a feeling of worth. And that's
Yeah.
really what this weekend brought about, just working with Tootie, working with Trish, excuse me. It just brought about that feeling of, yes, this is what I'm meant to do. This is what I'm doing, and I'm proud of my work. I'm proud of myself. So moving forward, there's just like that kick that I
Yeah.
needed.
Yeah. A lot of value has come from these like Black run promotions or these majority Black shows that we're now seeing within the wrestling community. I feel like that's a safe place for Black wrestlers to be when other places and other promotions may not always be that safe. So I was very excited to see those shows happening and see that you were a part of those shows. Um, on the Public Enemies podcast, I want to touch on some of the stuff that you mentioned over there. One of the things that you said were that you had some like super ideas coming out of that tooth and nail match that you had with Britt. I want to see if you could share any of them or share any of the ideas that you had pitched that didn't end up falling through, that didn't end up happening.
Well, we had a match, I guess, set. Well, it was planned, should I say, planned for the first Blood and Guts. I don't think it wasn't a pay per view, but it was just like one of those specialty shows,
Yep, the
theme
special
shows. And we were literally supposed to do like everything that her and Thunder were supposed to do. Like we were so gung ho about doing this. That was one thing that kind of fell through. I'm actually really happy that like my idea of doing the final at a dentist's office was actually approved. But I just wish that there was just more wrestling. Like I wanted more interaction, more wrestling than it just being a cinematic match. But you get what you're dealt and everything, and she wasn't necessarily 100% clear to do an actual match. So it just kind of bummed me out a little bit. But between that, everything else is kind of, I guess, kind of a little bit confidential. You know, I don't like to
Mhm.
share too much.
Of
You
course,
know,
yeah.
what could have been, what should have been, what didn't happen doesn't mean that it can't happen somewhere else.
Exactly. Yes. Save those ideas for the future. I just wanted to see if I could pick your brain again a little bit more information. So thank you for that. Um, Also, I want to, I have to touch on the situation. That was kind of what sparked me into having this project. When you came out on your podcast and you were talking about your experience and why you left, and then Tony's tweet after. Um, I already knew because I was listening to the podcast when it was happening. I was like, this is going to go one of two ways. This is either going to get perceived very well or this is going to go very badly. And obviously, not on your part, mainly due to lots of misogynoir and lots of bigotry within the wrestling community in general. But I wanted to see, how did you react when you saw that tweet? What were you doing? Who were you with? How were you able to get support after that happened? Because I'm guessing that was incredibly emotionally taxing, going through that, like seeing that tweet, seeing the tweets that were coming out of it, all of that stuff.
I didn't see the tweet at first.
Okay.
Honestly, I didn't even know what was going on
Oh,
because
God.
I have, like, you know, those very strict privacy settings and like on
Yeah.
my notifications because I don't like to be bothered like that. And I got a text message from Faye and she was like, do not respond. She's like, whatever
Oh,
he
God.
says, she's like, it doesn't matter. Do not respond to him. And I saw it and I laughed initially because
Yeah.
I was like, why are you lying like this? Like, sir, well, if we cool, like Will Hobbs said, if you got a problem with somebody, pick up the phone.
Yep.
You know, so I didn't really say anything. Like, I remember my husband took my phone away, and he was like, "You don't need to respond to anything because you know your truth and you know yourself." And I pretty much didn't. Honestly, I'd like to thank God because He gave me such peace during that time. Like, it could have been taxing. Like, all of this whole thing could have been so stressful. But once you have that undeniable peace and that joy, like in your heart, in your spirit, nothing is going to shake that.
Yes.
You know, I'm like, I'm not. So I saw it and I was just like, okay, like this is about to get real interesting. Like, I could tell he didn't listen to the podcast because I spoke so highly of everyone there.
Yeah.
And I was just like, all right.
Because when that tweet came out, I received lots of messages from people, and they were like, "Jay Shao, you do not need to ruin your reputation right now. Jay Shao, do not do anything out of pocket right now."
Mm-hmm.
And I was very ready. I was having an emotional breakdown. I was having a panic attack. I was like, I can't do this. I mentally and emotionally cannot do this right now. And I can't even imagine what it would have been like to have been in your shoes. So I'm so grateful to hear that you were able to have your phone taken away and find peace in that, because I do not know what I would have done if I was in your position. So all the props in the world for that. And a lot of what came out of that tweet and the podcast that you had was conversations about diversity, which originally and still to me seems like people were misinterpreting what you were saying on that podcast, or they didn't even listen to it in general.
Honestly, what killed me is the failure to deduce. I like to deduce when people are talking, you know, and just read between the lines and everything. So when they were like, "Oh, there's this person," people started naming the brown and black people and the women and the men of color, and I'm like, of course I can see them. I have eyes, you guys. I'm not talking about numbers. Let's deduce here.
Yes.
Obviously, we're talking about inclusion,
Right.
you know, and it's just people are going to take it however they want to take it, and it's either way, it started the conversation, it sparked up the conversation, and things are going to happen and get done prayerfully, you know, so that there's just better representation. There's nothing wrong with asking for more and genuine representation.
Yes. Even when this did happen, I did run some numbers, and the numbers didn't lie either. So I was
Well,
I think I pulled up a stat, and it was like the last black man to compete in a world title match was Scorpio Sky, and it was like November of 2019. And I was like,
yeah, that's when everybody was making fun of him, calling him Sonic. I remember.
Yes, yeah. With the
Yep.
ring. Yep.
With the ring. Yeah, we had a good laugh about that in the back. I would definitely poke at him, be like, "Hey, you got what's up, Sonic? Where Tails at?" Like,
Oh God, yeah. Oh, a lot of the conversation was also coming from people who did not necessarily need to be talking about it. I feel like when conversations like this are happening, it should be left to the people who, one, have experience in that, and two, are the people who are being affected by this conversation. So when white people were coming out and saying she was wrong in saying this or she was right in saying that, I was like, you weren't in her shoes and you're not even in a position to be able to speak on that. Um, so I wanted to kind of see if you felt any of that when people were having these conversations. Like, were you able to be like, these are the people that I respect, and if these people are saying something, then I'm going to listen to this, and then if it's anybody else, then just pushing it to the wayside.
oh, completely. Because I'm a firm believer in any business. If you haven't, taken a bump, like, am I really going to listen to you?
Yeah.
I listen to the people, of course, like you said, that I respect and that has mutual respect for me. And everybody that I talked to completely understood where I was coming from. And even those who did not, that were still employed by AEW, they came to me and we had conversations. And my literal response to everybody was like, "Did you listen to the podcast?" And then after they listened, they completely comprehended what exactly I was saying.
Yeah.
And they, very, very open and honest conversations with people that deserve the time to have those type of conversations. Because like I said, sometimes you got to check yourself and make sure that you're not in the wrong. But the checks already happened.
Period. I like that. People who deserve your time. I'm going to use that. I've been getting a
Yeah.
lot of unsolicited advice recently, so that's
Right. They
perfect.
don't deserve your time. Like, your time is precious and your power is yours. It's yours to give out. Your time, your energy, your spirit is yours to give out, and you have control over that. And I'm not going to let anybody have any piece of me that is not deserving.
Yes, exactly that. Yes. Um, Another thing that kind of came out of that conversation was Tony began to name some of the people in power who were POC.
Mhm.
One of the things, whenever I've talked to wrestlers recently, especially for this project, they kind of began to say that wrestling, the culture of wrestling will begin to change when there are Black voices backstage who are working in creative and who are able to kind of be that voice that we need for Black characters and for Black storylines and all of those things. So I wanted to see if there was like Black voices backstage to be able to resonate with, like even with Brandy, like was she able to kind of help steer the boat for Black characters in AEW?
Well, there wasn't necessarily a go-to person
Okay.
for Blackness. Brandy had her hands full. Chief brand officer was her actual title, and if she
Yes.
wasn't doing that, she was completely focused on her career and everything in wrestling.
Mhm.
And so, in all honesty, I know that like some people probably may not believe me, but Cody was actually the go-to person for Black women. I don't know about Black men because,
Wow.
they had other guys to talk to in a sense.
Yes. Yeah.
But when it came down to like Nyla, Jade, Red, myself, and everything, like we would go to him and have those conversations, try to pitch everything. Like when they weren't accepting storylines from much of anybody, they just wanted great matches. Like I went to Cody with the Three Strikes match storyline. I was like,
Mhm.
this is what I want to do. I explained it to him, and he believed in me, and he took it to TK for me. And he's like, I'm gonna work really hard to get this approved for you because I feel like you would be able to do this and you would have great matches and tell a good story. And he did it.
Wow, I was not expecting that
Right.
answer at
Yeah,
all.
he
Wow.
Cody was my go-to person. We would have a lot of different talks about everything. About like I tried to get a women's like seminar together, for all the girls to have camaraderie to get together and have
Mhm.
like trainers like Dustin, Cody, QT, George South, or I even asked for Jazz to come in and just to try to help the ladies. And, I even pitched like shows. I wanted a hot girl summer show with like Adam Page coming out with like Sunny on the back or Megan Thee Stallion on the back. Like I was like, let's do some cool stuff.
Oh
Like,
my God, that would have been awesome.
right. I was like, man, the hits would have came. But yeah,
That
he
would have been
was he
awesome.
was my go-to person um, just to talk and just to explain how I was feeling and to have a safe space.
Yeah. Those ideas are how you go mainstream too. People
Right.
always talk about going mainstream in wrestling, and it seems like Swole has the ideas for it, especially with all the stuff you're doing with fashion now and music as well. So I'm
Mhm.
very excited for what you have in store.
Thank you.
I do want to ask before we end this, how are you able to keep yourself sane through all of this? Obviously, this hasn't ended. The conversation about diversity, the attacks to you personally and to your family haven't
Mhm.
ended either. So how are you able to kind of step away from all of this and still find peace within wrestling?
My dad, who is a pastor, he would tell me all the time, it doesn't, what people think about you is none of your concern. What people think about God is my concern. I don't care what people think about me. People are going to talk. That is what they're going to do. But I've found that within all of my struggles is where I find my strength. That's where my peace comes from. And like I said, I just won't allow it to happen. And I feel like once people grasp that mentality of not allowing something to happen to you, not allowing something to you for you to be affected by it, like it may sting for a second, but 30 seconds, 60 seconds later, 90 seconds later, it's not going to matter. 5 minutes later, it's not going to matter. And that's what really just kept me sane, just my faith, my family, and honestly, I don't care. Because what is for me, and no man on this earth or woman is going to be able to take that from me. And
Yes.
there's power in that.
Yes. That's Swole mentality right there.
That's that
That's
soul
exactly what
mentality,
it
baby.
is. Before I let you go, I want to give you the chance to say anything you didn't get the chance to say. Plug all your stuff. Let people know where they can find your podcast, most importantly, as well.
Mhm. You can find my podcast on Callin. They just did this whole run out with Android. So it's available on Android and on Apple devices. So please make sure you look into that. It's called Swole World. The next place, well, actually, you know what? I can't announce that. But every
Ooh.
single other booking that I will have, you can find on Twitter at Swole World or on Instagram at the Big Swole. That's DABIG SWOLE. Please make sure to look out for my new song. It's called Go Swole. That is actually on all Apple devices. Yeah, yeah. It's on iTunes. So make sure you stream that one. Because that one I get money from that
Okay.
one. Yeah. Make sure you buy the t-shirts. What a maneuver. They're
Yes.
soft and they're not crinkly. And when you wash them, they won't fade, obviously. So what a maneuver.
Yes. Yes. Thank you so much.